The southwestern Scottish countryside. Miles of green pastures, long vistas, and rural roads winding up into the iconic Scottish Highlands. And some light vehicle traffic, of course. A few miles to the south, the COP26 climate summit is concluding in Glasgow, and attending some events had me thinking about something that sometimes comes in and out of mind for me, ways that I can reduce the environmental impact of my landscape photography. Partly in that spirit, and partly because I had $8 in the bank, I packed up my camera gear and set out for Glencoe on my bicycle. While what ensued wasn't exactly a success in terms of photography or in terms of reaching Glencoe, I did have an awesome close-up, zero-emissions experience in natural Scotland, and I wanted to share that experience with you in this video. The small town of Callander borders the eastern Loch Lomond and the Trossachs National Park. Here I'll disembark the busy highway and take to Scotland's National Cycle Route 7 to explore the miles of autumnal highland scenery open only to those willing to leave their vehicle in park. Just after sunset, I encounter an outstanding camping opportunity among an otherworldly forest at the edge of the Trossachs. Without a doubt, this is one of the eeriest and most beautiful wooded landscapes I've ever set foot in. The terrain is difficult to ride, so I've had to dismount my cycle to search for a suitable campsite. However, soon I can't even push the bike, and I realize the area I'm walking in is actually an enormous bog. Because I'm unfamiliar with this type of environment, I try to move uphill, but to my surprise, the water level just becomes deeper. The bike is completely immovable, and my feet are completely submerged. In near freezing temperatures, this has been a critical error that will haunt me for days. After some time, I find a spot dry enough to make camp, but my shoes are completely soaked with ice-cold water and will remain that way for the rest of the outing. I awaken from a night of rest, on with the frozen shoes and survey the unforgettable forest I'd only half seen in the moonlight the night before, to pack up my things and clomp back through the woods and start my day's riding. This stretch of Cycle Route 7 will be the most memorable riding of my trip. To my left, those strange woods sprawl out as far as the eye can see, and to my right, the landscape will open up to lochs stretching across the feet of pastured hillsides, all connected by rapids blasting through sparse small woods. In my approach, photography is an art form, and the landscape is a tool I use to make art. While I have an interest in maintaining the viability and resilience of that tool, both for myself and for the next artist, I've never advocated for, nor felt the need to advocate for, photography as some kind of inherently pro-environmental activity, and I'm kind of surprised at how many people do represent photography in that way. While it's true that photography has helped me to understand and appreciate the environment, I can readily admit that my photography has some degree of negative impact on the environment, no plausible positive environmental impact, and that photography in the aggregate certainly has an overwhelmingly negative impact. I'm curious what you see as the environmental impact of photography. Do you think expeditions like this one, for those able to make them, are an effective way to minimize that impact? What do you think are good ways to make sure that preserving the landscape in the photograph doesn't mean destroying it in reality? Leave a comment and let me know what you think. I would love to hear your conversation. As the sky clouded over and the air settled back to near freezing, my wet shoes eventually soaked my fresh socks, and I found myself looking to make camp early to get my feet into the sleeping bag, almost as a matter of emergency. I discovered this fantastic campsite about an hour before sunset and made a conservative decision to end the day. This campsite sits in a secluded bit of pine forest on a gravel logging road, just on the shore of a pristine, exemplary Scottish loch. You're seeing me fall several times trying to stand on my frozen feet as I dismount the bike, but the excitement of finding this picture-perfect campsite has me springing back up and through the woods to enjoy the superb view. I did some schoolwork in the tent as my feet slowly thawed. Nothing too exciting, and the next morning I came to terms with the fact I would have to turn back home a little short of my destination. In all, the difficulties I encountered could have been overcome with a couple extra days' time, but a newfound appreciation for just how short 7 hours of northern winter daylight are, I knew I would have to reserve the remaining time for the return journey. The photographic light on the way home was some of the best I'd had on the whole expedition. Though I needed to devote most of the daylight to pedaling, of course I did stop to take just a very few photos. In all, the approach of this trip made for better casual leisure than serious photography. But with some better planning and more time at hand, I think this could have been both. And I'm glad I did the work to move myself a little closer to proficiently achieving that goal. Until next time, you guys keep an eye out and a foot forward, and thank you for watching.